Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using a My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. I used the May kit for this layout, and the collection that was featured in the May kit was Kaleidoscope from 49 and Market, and I absolutely loved this collection. I loved the colors, I loved the patterns, and I had used the rest of the pattern paper that I'm using to back my cut file for another layout, and I really wanted to use this beautiful paisley print on a layout, so I'm using it to back this My Creative Scrapbook cut file that says Happy Days. Because I wanted to back the entire cut file using the same pattern paper, I was able to cut it out on my Silhouette Cameo. I took the cut file and I removed all of the inner cuts, so I was able to cut out one piece. I cut it out of pattern paper, and I also cut it out of white cardstock. I attached the pattern paper to the white cardstock cutout, and then I layered the cut file with the inner cuts on top of those two layers. And I like to have that extra layer of cardstock in the back because I know I'm going to be stitching. And I was just showing you how I was punching the holes. I should have shown you what it looked like after it was stitched, but you'll see that in a few moments. This is the pattern paper that I'm going to be using for my layout. I wanted to add a little bit of stenciling to the background. I'm using some Distress Oxides, and I'm using a stencil from a past My Creative Scrapbook kit. I use two different colors. I use Shabby Shutters and Bundled Sage. I was thinking of using Twisted Citron, that's the bright green color off to the left, but I decided to use these two darker colors. I'm varying which color that I use because I want there to be some lighter leaves and some darker leaves going all around the top part of the layout where I'm putting these branches. I think that these 49 and Market pattern papers are so beautiful. There are so many layers of colors and images on them, and sometimes I feel like I don't have to do anything to them. But for this layout, I was thinking I just wanted to add my own little touch, and I thought that by having some branches at the top of the layout, it would go along with the branches at the bottom of the layout. This stencil that I'm using is from Simple Stories. We get a lot of stencils in the limited edition kit, and I feel like over the years I've built up a nice little collection of stencils, and I really like this particular one. I think that branches and leaves go with a lot of different layouts. And looking back, I could have put some branches in that white space in the middle. For some reason, I was kind of steering clear of that area. I did add some branches, but I think I could have added a few more there. And then here you can see the cut file. I have stitched all around the inner part of each of the letters using some white embroidery thread. I'm going to add a pink border all around the outside. I'm using a piece of cardstock from my stash. I'm also going to put a very, very thin border of white all around the background paper. And I think that by having a very thin white mat, it helps you to be able to appreciate both the pink and the green more than you would if they were right next to each other. So I gutted that piece of pink paper just in case I needed a little bit of that paper for the layout. I don't end up using it, but you never know. And then I cut down the white paper and I layer that right on top of the pink paper. And then I'm going to layer my background paper on top. And of course, I had to cut that down a little bit so that it would fit nicely inside the piece of white paper. And I don't have to put too much ATG adhesive on the back because I didn't use any wet media on my background. And then I forgot to ink the edges of the paper, so luckily I was able to easily peel the pattern paper back from the white cardstock and ink all of the edges. I decided that I wanted to pop up my cut file on some foam. First, I'm using a little bit of gel glue to anchor some of the strands of thread to the back of the cut file. I don't want those threads to be visible on my final layout, so I thought just adding a little touch of glue to secure them would be a good start. And then I use some fun foam. I like to use the fun foam that's adhesive on one side. I wish somebody would make fun foam that was adhesive on both sides. That would be amazing. And of course, there are other products that are adhesive on two sides, but they are not the thickness and the great value that Fun Foam is. I love the way it's very inexpensive. So I add foam all the way around the back of the cut file, and I keep the foam away from the edges because I don't want you to be able to see purple foam if you're looking at the layout from an angle. And for some reason, that piece of foam on the H just would not stick down, so I had to put a second piece on there. I added some ATG adhesive, which will not stick in the long run. I'm going to have to go back and glue down that cut file with some wet glue, but I like to make the layout first because I move the cut files all around on some of my layouts. I really like to have that option open to me until I'm all done with the layout. So I thought that this page had a real tropical feel to it. I really loved the bright colors and I loved the hummingbirds, and I wanted to use this pattern paper for some pictures of my daughter with her boyfriend in the Dominican Republic. But first I wanted to double check that there are hummingbirds in DR because I didn't want to use this paper with all of these hummingbirds on it if they didn't have hummingbirds there. So as it turns out, there are several species of hummingbirds, and I admit I don't know if they're the species that are depicted on this page, but I thought good enough, there are hummingbirds there and it looks bright and tropical. I'm going to go ahead and use this picture. And my daughter went on vacation with her boyfriend and his family. So his mother took this picture of them in the pool. And I think that this picture just sums up what everyone wants their tropical vacation to be like. They're in this beautiful blue pool and they have some fruity drinks and it looks like they're very happy. And I wish I was there right now. Now, I have this small photo that I'm using at the bottom of the page, and I wanted to add a number of mats to the back of it. I wanted to bring all of the colors that I have on the rest of the page to the photo. So I have a green mat and a blue mat and some pink pattern paper as well. And then as I was talking, I made a banner with hearts at the top of the page. There were lots of die cut hearts in two different sizes. So I alternated between the larger size and the smaller size. And I just made sure that I didn't have any hearts that were the same color next to each other. I used a couple of different elements from the kit to make those different colored mats behind the photo. The green mat, that's a die cut of an envelope. The blue paper, that's pattern paper. And the pink mat is from one of the pieces of packaging that was in the kit. I'm using the back of my scissors to distress the edges of all three of these mats. And then I offset the papers a little bit so you could see each of the colors on two sides of the photo. And then I use some ATG adhesive, I attach it down, and then I put this little sentiment that says, "What a lovely day," underneath the photo. Now I'm going to start working on my heart banner. I took all of the larger hearts and I turned them over so I could add some fun foam to the back of them. I'm popping up the larger hearts and then I'm going to use the smaller hearts behind the big ones to fill in the spaces in between. And once again, I'm using ATG adhesive on the back of the foam because I want to hold them down temporarily because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to move these hearts around a little bit. I started with the blue heart in the center, so I made sure that the center of that heart was at 6 inches. And then I began arranging all of the larger hearts around it, and then I have the smaller hearts in between them. I decided that I wanted the banner to go all the way across the page, so I spread those larger hearts out a little bit more, and then I attach down the smaller hearts, and then when I attach them down, I ink the edges of them and then tuck them behind the bigger ones. To ink the edges of the hearts, I'm using daubers that are a similar color to each of the hearts and just using whatever ink is left on the dauber. So now I have my banner attached down and I'm going to be adding some dimensional flowers. I'm going to have 2 clusters. One you could see at the top left-hand side of the letter H, and then the other one to the right of the letter S. I'm also going to have a very small cluster of flowers to the left of the photo, but not in the place that I have it now. That's going to change a little bit. I'm using some heavy gel matte medium to attach the flowers down. And you can see that I spend a little bit of time deciding how to layer the flowers. I feel like those decisions make a big impact on how those flower clusters look. So to the left of the photo, I end up adding a few sentiments. I already have "What a Lovely Day." I add one that says "Happiest," and then I layer another one that says "Positive Vibes Only" on top of it. I have the 3 horizontal sentiments and I wanted to add a vertical element. So I decided that I would go with this chipboard stamp. So I attach that down along with the sentiments. And then I added some smaller flowers along the outside edge of that cluster. I like the idea of having 3 flower clusters. And even though this is really small, I like the way it brings some of the pink down to that area. And I think that these little tiny flowers are just the right size to go along with the embellishments that I have in that cluster. I fussy cut out some dragonflies. There were 2 large ones and a smaller one. I started off by including the 2 larger ones on the cut file. I like to add things to the cut file just to give them a little bit more detail. So I added some foam to the backs of both of the dragonflies, and then I attach one of them down to each of the words, one on the right and the other one on the left. Next, I added some photo corners to the layout. I decided to put pink ones in opposite corners and then blue photo corners in opposite corners, but then I realized that you can't see the photo corner in the lower left-hand corner. So maybe I should have used 3 different colors to go along with the mat, but I didn't think of that at the time. So I have the 2 pink and the 1 blue photo corner, which I used a photo corner punch made by EK Success to punch out. One of the many great things about 49 and Market papers and embellishments is that they often have the embellishments that they include in all of the different colors of the kit. So I was really happy to see that I had a matching heart for all of the large hearts. So I am going to layer those hearts on top of the larger hearts that are there. First, however, I'm popping each of them up on some foam. Even though there's 2 layers of foam, I really wanted to pop those up and give them a little bit of dimension. And I know some people don't like a lot of dimension on their pages, but I couldn't resist because I really liked the idea of those being popped up a little bit from the larger hearts. And then for the smaller hearts, I used some really cute chipboard buttons that were in the kit. And I used a little bit of gel glue on those just to make sure that they stay put. I love to add highlights to these dimensional flowers. I use some heavy white gesso and I use a dry bristle brush and I just dab a little bit of the gesso onto just the edges of the petals and the centers of the flowers. And I love the way this gives them such a dimensional look, and I just love the addition of a little bit of white to the flowers. And there are a couple of flowers that have jewels in the centers, so I'm careful not to get any gesso on those. I don't think having gesso on those makes them look better, but I do like the way gesso looks on the centers when there are the stamen in the center, like the large pink flower that's on the right. I will eventually add some gesso to that, and it'll help you to see how detailed the center of that flower is. And I try to add the gesso with a very light hand, and if I want a little bit more gesso on the flowers, I'll go back and I'll add a second layer. I had some more of those buttons left over that I used at the top of the page on the banner, so I decided to use the remaining ones on the photo corners to help tie the top of the layout in with the bottom of the layout. And to the left of the word days on the cut file, I added a little tag with a hummingbird on it, and I popped up that hummingbird on a little bit of foam. Earlier, I trimmed back the green pattern paper in the background so that it would fit on top of the white mat. I was looking at the strips of paper that I cut off of the green paper, and on the other side, there was a beautiful pink pattern paper, and that pink was so bright and vibrant. I don't think you could really see it here on the video, but I loved the color pink on these strips of paper so much more that I decided I was going to just slightly peel back my background and place these where I had the pink cardstock. And it's a little detail, but it made a really big difference to me. I thought it looked so much better. I added a dragonfly at the top of the banner, and the layout is complete, and here are some close-ups. So once again, my friends, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos and to like them and to leave me those really sweet comments. I really enjoy reading them. If you are interested in purchasing a subscription to any of the My Creative Scrapbook kits, you can take a look in the description box where you'll find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.